Hey guys, so obviously I'm not filming this video with my usual setup. I'm literally setting my phone on top of my body wash container here in my new rented room that I have for school before I head out for school later today, but I feel like there's some things that I need to say that have been really bugging me lately with the 3D printing community, and by no means is this video meant to be a personal dig on anybody. I am not trying to bash anybody in particular, not bashing any companies. But I do feel like I need to say some cold, hard truths here about the community because there's some things that are really kind of just disturbing me lately, and I feel like something needs to be said. So let's dive into it. So recently I've noticed in the 3D printing community, and there's actually been a couple of Facebook groups that I've just decided to leave for the moment because they have become so full of people who just want to go around and leave ridiculously long comments about things and just nitpick every single little thing that somebody does and every little thing about a machine. And I think the biggest thing that has kind of bugged me lately, and I've had a lot of people take this out of context, is my statement that I've made, and I still continue to say, that low-cost 3D printers are actually not the best thing to happen to the community. Now, before you start flaming in the comments, let me explain what I mean by that. I'm not saying that more people getting access to a 3D printer is a bad thing. There's lots of people who were priced out of 3D printers in the past who now have them and do amazing things with them. That is awesome. That is good. That is what I want to see. The problem, though, is pretty much like what happened back in the mid to late 90s when those little pocket mini bike things came out, and then in the 2000s when you had drones come out, and then GoPros come out, and e-scooters and things like that. The problem is there's people who know how to use the items in a safe, responsible manner, know what they're doing, and enjoy them. And then there's all the other people who don't know what they're doing, get injured, and or break a bunch of rules on them, and then sap all the fun for everyone. I used to be big into model airplanes back in the day, and back then you didn't have to do any licensing, anything like that. You could go and pick up a model helicopter, a model airplane, a model quadcopter, things like that, and you could go out and fly them. And there were already pre-existing rules in place, but people used common sense back then. They didn't go flying over a giant crowd of people. They didn't go trying to fly over a sports venue. They didn't go trying to fly next to an airport, allegedly. There were people who were actually dedicated to the hobby, and because it was a little bit more expensive to get into and it was a little bit more difficult, they really made sure that it kept the riffraff out. I remember as a kid going to the indoor flyers in Simi Valley at the park center, and some kid that I knew over there literally just showed me how to fly a model airplane, literally gave me the controller of the thing as it's flying around, just goes, keep flying the thing. And that's pretty much how I learned to fly, was by hanging out with people. I got big into the community. A lot of people were super helpful once you got to know them. Once they figured that you were actually passionate about this and you wanted to respect the hobby, they were more than happy to help you out, which was great. But the big thing was you were going to respect the hobby and you were going to respect the rules. They didn't want a bunch of riffraff coming in there and shutting things down for them by just going psycho and doing all kinds of bad things. Now, how does this apply to 3D printing? Well, it applies to it in terms of when I got into it years ago with my Ultimaker 2, 3D printers had two categories: the very expensive pre-built machines, which is what I got, and the kits. And even for the pre-built machines, you still had to do a fair bit of work. What I mean by that is you had the Cura profile, but the problem was things kept getting updated so fast with the firmware and the retraction settings that you could get decent prints from the machine when you started out, but you still had to do a fair bit of work, because by the time the machine shipped, got to the warehouse, you bought it, and it got into your hands, a lot of things had changed. So it wasn't uncommon to have to go in there and say, dial the voltages for the motors or up or down a little bit to adjust it, because maybe one motor's running too hot and the other one's not. One motor has enough power and one doesn't. Getting in there and tweaking the slicer settings and going, okay, well, this is working, but this travel speed seems a little bit fast. Let me tone that down and let me play with this. There was still a lot of DIY that you had to do with the thing. And I learned a lot doing that. And that's something a lot of people these days don't realize is you still have to do a lot of DIY with 3D printing. And I think the biggest grumble that I have is just in general through marketing, videos, and just word of mouth. People have been sold on the concept that 3D printing is this magical thing where you open up the box, you pull the machine out, you've somehow got the filament loaded in there, it seems like, or you load the filament in, and you hit go, and boom, the thing just magically produces parts with no issues whatsoever. It doesn't work like that. At a minimum, you got to go in there, you got to level the bed, you got to download a slicer, you got to find models, you got to slice the models, you got to make sure the models stick to the bed, you got to make sure the model prints, you got to make sure it doesn't jam. One problem I have with a lot of the, how would I say it, the downloaded profiles a lot of people have is I find that the speeds on those things are ridiculously fast. And instead of being a bit more conservative starting out, they're whipping the machine around at some crazy fast speed. And if you don't have your settings just right, it's very easy for the print to fail because maybe your temperature isn't right, you can't melt the filament fast enough, maybe you didn't stick to the bed well enough. All of a sudden, the momentum of the head and or the bed moving knocks the print off, and you got spaghetti, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is, these are not plug and play machines. Now, by my era standards, man, these things are darn close to plug and play, but you still have to do a lot of the same work that you did back in the day. And I feel like with the explosion of the cheap printers, and the marketing and just the misconceptions about 3D printing that have been propagated, people still have this unrealistic expectation that they don't have to do any work on it. Well, last time I checked, if you own a car or you own a bicycle or something like that, you still have to do some kind of maintenance on it. If you have a bicycle, you might need to eventually change out your tires. You might get a flat and you need to fix that. You probably need to lubricate your chain and clean it every once in a while. If you have a car, obviously you need to get the engine oil changed. It's going to need new tires. Heck, my car just needed new tires. That's not the tire's fault. That's not the car's fault. It's a consumable item. It wears out. Same story with the printers. People seem to think that once they have the machine, they have to do absolutely no work to it whatsoever. And that's about as far from the truth as it gets. You need to, clean the bed, clean the nozzle out. If you have a filament jam or something, do occasional lubrication, double check things haven't loosened themselves up. There's quite a lot of work that you have to do on these things, and that's just the way it is. But people don't realize that, and then all of a sudden something starts jamming up, their nozzle starts getting clogged because they got a bunch of dust in it, and they start blaming the firmware and the machine and this and that, and don't realize that you didn't do the maintenance on it. Sorry, but that's your fault. I mean, that is not to say that limited machines do not get shipped. It happens. Some brands are known for it more than others. Damage in transit happens. You can send something through QC and you go to use it, and on the third time the fan dies. It could have been great when you shipped it from the factory, but it got beat up so many times in transit, it finally dies. It happens. It sucks, but it happens. Get used to it. Nothing is perfect. I mean, we should always strive for perfection, but we're never going to reach perfection. I mean, I don't know. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is the community as a whole needs to come to an understanding that there's going to be a lot of new people in this. That is not a bad thing. But the new people also need to realize that the old timers, we had to work to get to the point where we're at, where we can download profiles. We set the groundwork for that. So when you go around complaining that you can't just instantly download the profile for something, and we're going, hey, wait a second, we had to build our profiles from scratch. Personally, I get a little bit offended by that. It's not like somebody going, hi, does anybody have any profiles here for my fill-in-the-blank machine? And they politely ask, sure, I might send you my profile, I might send you my specifications, but when there's 1,000 videos on how to build a profile, and there's a downloads page that you can go to download multiple profiles, and people are going, I need a profile. Did you put in any of the effort to look for that? I don't think you did. We're going to be a little bit, we shouldn't chew you out for, but we're going to be a little bit like, okay, really? You didn't even look at that and you're already complaining. We're off to a great start. So I guess in conclusion, what I would say is, to the new people, realize that 3D printing is not an exact science. There's a lot of variables in it, and there will always be a lot of variables in it, and it's up to you to put in the effort to get your machine running as good as you can. The old saying, you get out what you put in, totally applies to 3D printing. You put in a bunch of whining, moaning, complaining, and not fixing anything, your machine's going to do a lot of whining, moaning, and not wanting to be working. If you put in the effort to get your slicer set up right, do basic maintenance on the machine, buy good quality filament, buy good quality components, it will treat you well. It will make lots of good parts for you. That is not to say that they will always be perfect. Things happen, but realize that as part as well. And for the old timers in the community, I would definitely say try and be understanding of the new people, but at the same time realize that some battles are just not worth fighting. If somebody just wants to sit there and complain all the time, move on to somebody else, because they're clearly not in the mood and the mindset to want to actually work on anything. And I'll bet you there's a ton of other people who are eagerly waiting for your advice and would gladly use it to their advantage. So I hope this helps, guys. I just feel like it needs to be said because I'm really starting to feel like the 3D printing community is going down a dark road that I don't like. And I'm going to be perfectly honest here. If this keeps up, I'm not saying I'm going to quit Make It with Calvin, but I might not do as much stuff with 3D printing on Make It with Calvin, and I might find some other stuff to do because I really feel like if the community is just going to treat me and treat others like trash, it's not worth my time. It's not. I have better things to do with my time than deal with a bunch of people who want to just sit there and complain all day. And that's not to say that I don't know some amazing people in the community. People like getting to hang out with Angus from Maker's Muse, knowing Jimmy from Jimmy Shaw's Tidbits really well, Ashley from Chip Builds, a lot of other people who I can't even remember off the top of my head, all awesome people that I've talked to at model train shows when I explain to them that this is 3D printed, and their eyes light up and they go, oh my gosh, and they've got a bunch of really good questions about 3D printing and they're genuinely interested. Or they go, oh yeah, I saw my friend's printer and he was having this problem. And I'm like, well, maybe this is the issue. Or they're interested in getting a printer and you tell them the realities of it, but you also go, you know what? If you're willing to put the effort in, you can totally get something out of it. You know, that's what we should be about, not sitting here complaining about every single little nitpick thing because we didn't get handed everything to us on a silver platter. Come on, guys. Some of us had to fight to get where we're at. So let me know what you guys think down below. Please keep it civil down there because I am definitely going to be policing the comments on this video. The point is to inform you guys and challenge you guys to try and do better as a community. I don't know what to say in conclusion to this. I would say I'm going to be keeping an eye on things, and if I see things going downhill more, I might get a little more, how would I say it? Get a little more vocal in my videos about it and start calling things out for what they are, because I feel like if everybody wants to just sit around and go, oh, you think it's perfectly fine, and it's not, it's really doing a disservice to everybody. So go out there, try and be nice to your fellow humans, guys. Realize that there are some people who truly need help, and there are some people who need help here, not with their machine. See you guys later.